let's get started. All right, welcome back, guys, to Stumblin Forward. I'm one of your hosts, Kristen Herman.
And I'm Monica Ortega.
All right, and today we're speaking to Don Markland. Don is the CEO and owner of Accountability Now, an executive coaching and business strategy company out of Jacksonville, Florida. As a Forbes contributor for entrepreneurship, leadership, and sales, he has over 20 years of experience in the world of sales, marketing, leadership, and business growth. Currently, he's leading the sales efforts for one of the most successful digital marketing agencies in the U.S., 411 Locals. Thanks so much for being on the show, Don. How are you today?
You. I'm so good, and thank you. That intro makes me sound a lot more impressive probably than I am. If my wife heard that, she would just say, "Can you edit that to a guy who doesn't do very much around the house?" That's
oh my God!
Yeah, but I love my wife; she's amazing. But, she's my biggest critic.
She'd be like, "Wait a minute, I have a better intro. Give me one
second. I've got some edits, please." Yeah.
Well, tell us how everything got started. I mean, I feel like you actually, I think you're pretty impressive from what you already wrote, but how did you start Accountability Now and everything?
That's a great question. So I was in my mid-20s, and I weighed about 65 pounds heavier than I do now. My favorite restaurant was this amazing place called Taco Bell. I don't know if you've heard of Taco Bell.
Number
Love
4, please.
the chalupa.
Number 4.
Love the chalupa. Yeah, so good. And I was vice president of sales and operations for a call center company in northern Utah. So here I was, mid-20s. I'm fairly successful. Things are going really well. And I was miserable, right? I was overweight, stressed, exhausted. And I really, I just was overwhelmed. Couldn't find any success in my life. And here I was in this training room in Rock Falls, Illinois, because I was flying like 24 times a year. Just finished a chalupa, if I remember right. And I thought this can't be what, this can't be what my life's about, because I never see my family. I'm always working. I've got no work-life balance. It was like work life balance. And sitting in this training room, I had this kind of moment of clarity of what I needed. I needed better accountability. And so I created this idea just for Don, just for myself, that accountability is the glue that ties commitment to results. And I created this 4 C's of accountability program, just totally selfish. And as I did, oh my gosh, things started to happen. I lost weight, which was great. I started to see my family more. And luckily my wife liked the thin me, which was a bonus.
She's like, actually, can you gain 5 more pounds?
Yeah. And things started to really click. And so then I made because I was the boss, I made my whole company start to follow the 4 C's, and we started to grow. We went from 15 to 25 million to almost 50 million. And I was thinking, man, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? I'm super cocky now, and I've got a program, I'm a genius. And then as the world kind of works, right then my wife gets diagnosed with cancer. And here we are, like 26 and 27, and she's got cancer, and I'm thinking, this is not fair. I've got a program and I'm doing all these things right. And we got through it. She's fine. But the 2 years of her radiation and surgery and everything was tough. And the only thing that got me through was, am I going to do what I say I'm going to do? The glue that ties commitment to results. It changed my life. And as I came out of that, I remember telling her, I said, I wouldn't wish these 2 years on my worst enemy, but I, at the same time, wish everybody on planet Earth could taste what this was like, because now I'm a better executive, manager, husband, father, son. Everything was better after going through that. And it was shortly after there, I joined an entrepreneurship startup. We started it up. We grew it to 1.5 million. And later I worked a little bit with Amazon. And even just recently, I worked for a big financial company as their chief revenue officer, where we grew from 50 million up to 89 million in 3 years. Because now I walk in and say, 4 C's, day one, from IT to accounting to sales, everybody's going to learn this, and we're going to kick the crap out of our lives. And that's how it was built. And luckily Forbes was very kind to me. They published the 4 C's and they put it on their podcast, and people started saying, Don, how do I do this? And that's where it birthed. And that's where I start to drive home with people. If we just do what we know we can do and say we're going to do and have a system, we can do incredible things.
Okay, so I'm like revved up now. You've teased it. You got to tell us, what are the four C's?
Yeah, we got to
Sure.
go with that first.
Yeah, look, and so the four C's are really easy. It starts with two rules, and then there's the four C's. The first rule is always accountability always starts with me. So you can't go into a room and point at other people. You always got to look at yourself and know I had something to do with this. I don't care if a hurricane comes and knocks out my power here in Florida, which does happen, by the way. Okay. It happens,
Just
but
every week.
yeah, I have
Sorry.
to look at that as this is my fault, right? I don't have power because of me. I can't blame a hurricane. I should have had a generator. I should have done this. I should have found a remote office. I should have found people to work with in Chicago, right? Which I would never do. Chicago's terrible. But
Hey.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing. But you start with
It's just
yourself.
cold.
Yeah, yeah.
It has good
It's
food.
cold and windy, and it does have it does have good Thai food downtown. So you always start with yourself. The second thing is that you can't have an ego. There are no egos with accountability. Anybody can hold you accountable. I use a metaphor with baseball. If I throw a ball and you swing and you miss, that's a strike. And it doesn't matter if the umpire called it a strike or the opposing player called it a strike or a fan in the stands calls it a strike. It doesn't matter. It's still a strike. It ain't going to change. And we sometimes get so butthurt and frustrated saying to people, who are you to tell me what I did wrong? You do it too. And who cares if they're a hypocrite? Of course they are. They're going to all point out things and probably do the same thing. That's probably why they're good at pointing it out. It doesn't change the fact you sucked. Doesn't change the fact that you messed up. Why don't you tell them, hey, thanks for having the guts to tell me the truth. Let me try to get better. All right, that's where the first two rules are. Now, the four C's are easy after that. The first C is you critique success. So whatever you do, you stop and don't break your wrist patting yourself on the back. You stop and do it better. Stop and look and say, God, how can I be better at that? How can I push myself better? The next thing is you correct failure. All of us need to make more mistakes. We don't punish them. We don't be perfectionists. I want more mistakes out of you. I want to see more mistakes so you can find where you made the decision and correct it and do better. The third thing is you need to celebrate growth. So wherever you're doing in your life and you're trying to be better, that's the hardest decision in your life is putting extra weight on the bar, that 12th or 13th rep. That's what we celebrate. Not success. Success, I expect you both, I expect the Monicas of the world to be successful, right? Why would I celebrate that? That's meeting expectations, right? I'm not going to sell that. Builds entitlement. I want to celebrate when you make the hard choice and do hard things. That we're going to go crazy for. We're going to stand on tables and ring bells and go nuts. And then the last thing is crush mediocrity. So, Kristen, you're in Chicago, so you know this. You have big bugs, right? We have big bugs in our house. I don't care how many people come clean your house, you're gonna have bugs. It's just
That's very true.
it's just awful. When you see a big bug, you take a flip flop or whatever it is, and you just crush it with everything you've got. Because if you just tap it, what's it gonna do? It's gonna call all of his buddies and say, "Come over." It's terrible.
Have you seen those like centipedes with like the
Oh
100
yeah,
million legs?
yeah, they're horrible.
They don't die. And they
No,
move so fast.
they're
And they're
impossible.
scary. Now I'm
Yeah.
like, okay.
And that's what you do. You take those centipedes of your life, your mediocrity, and you crush it with everything you've got. You crush it with every single thing you have. Because if you don't take that mentality to it, you get infected with mediocrity in your life. We all have it. We all got what we struggle with. And you got to see it and just say, no, I'm done. I'm tired of this, and crush it. There you go.
That. I feel like I just had this conversation actually yesterday with somebody that in businesses, every quarter they take a look at what's working and what's not working and they fix it. But we don't do that with our personal lives because we don't want to beat ourselves up
Right.
or we don't want to compare ourselves. But you have to be accountable, like you said, and actually step back and look at those things and course correct. Don't beat yourself up. Just figure out how to change it and actually put a plan in action. So I love that. I love that the 4 C's can be applied at the businesses that you work with, but also just life in general with people.
Totally agree. Side note, we can always pause for a second. Don, if there's any like noise or anything, like feel free to don't feel free to like cut yourself off, and I can always edit it from here.
Okay, good.
So don't. I didn't want you to feel like
Well, yeah, my son
pressure.
was like, "Hey, somebody's at the
No.
door. We got to pay them." And I was like, "Okay, yeah."
No pressure.
Oh,
Yeah. If there's anything like that, just let us know, and
okay.
then I can always like
Thank
edit
you.
this part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but going for that, I was thinking more about how you were saying critiques and how people like they want to hear those critiques. Some people can't handle it. Where I know it's hard to take a critique, but the honesty and when you have someone in your life that will give you that honesty is so valuable. And it
Yeah, look,
sucks sometimes, but
you're so right, Ken. I'll explain it. This is how I teach people this. Okay. So there's two types of critiques. There's critiques from people, other people, external sources, and they're not always accurate. I mean, let's just be honest. Some people give critiques that are not great. You still need to listen, right? But the part where you don't want to critique and you want to be really careful with this is self critique. Okay. And I'll explain. I would bet, and I don't know you both really well. We've been friends for, a few hours. So, um, but most people, if I took a recording device and record what you say to yourself about yourself, I could probably lock you up for abuse.
but
And I mean that. Like I could probably say,
yeah.
hey, you wouldn't talk like to your friend that way. You wouldn't for sure wouldn't talk to kids that way. Why in the world are you talking to yourself that way? That is just unacceptable. And if you literally stopped and thought about what you say to yourself about yourself, you'd say, hey, I'm not going to stand for this trash in my house, right? I won't. Yet we still do. And accountability is about accountable for the wins in your life and the mistakes. Accountability isn't just this, I have to make you better because you suck. It's about saying, hey, I need to do the right things. And when I do, it's okay for me to say, I did that. I did something well. I'm going to hold myself accountable for kicking butt. And that's great. And it helps you fix that mindset problem.
So when you started Accountability Now, what was that process like? What did you learn along the way? Because you went from working at a business to sort of starting your own. Obviously, that's a big leap. So how did that look in your life?
So it started with, like I mentioned, Forbes was kind enough to publish my 4Cs and then invite me on their podcast. And Forbes has a pretty good viewership. I also write for Forbes, right? This was right before I started writing for them. And as I did, I had some people start reach out to me and say like, hey, how do we learn and do what you do? How do we do this? And the first couple I did absolutely for free, right? Because I was just an idiot. I was thinking, oh, I'm just being helpful. And then my amazing, incredible wife, she was the one who said, look, if people are going to pay you for this and they want to, you should start your own business. So I thought I'm going to start it on the side. I'm just going to do a little side business thing and still work. And then over time, I built the business because more and more people wanted to do it. I have a sales and marketing background, so I know how to attract some leads and how to do some things, how to get referrals. And as I kept that approach, it grew. The business is only 2.5 years old, but I have 26 clients in 7 different countries, in many different verticals, and it's great. It's going extremely well.
That's awesome. I love when like what you naturally do sort of turns into a business instead of people waking up one day and they're like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. This is how it's going to go. And then it's a very big uphill climb, but you just kind of fell into what you were naturally doing already and providing value to people. And it sounds like it grew pretty quickly. So
yeah, well, look, and I'll tell you, look, I tell people that all the time if you want to start a side business, the first path to starting a side business is create a second flow of income that complements your first flow. There's no reason. Some people start a business that's totally different than what they're doing now. And now you're going to have a mental competition of what do I work on? What do I do? How do I be better? And you don't have to do that. If you take your second flow and say, hey, this complements what I already do, my trade, my expertise, my brilliance, it'll allow you to build that second flow or third flow or whatever it is off of what you're already brilliant at.
Yeah.
I failed at that. I've got 3 different businesses and I'm trying to figure out a
You know what though?
Yeah.
Like I feel like all 3 of your businesses kind of coincide
it's
in the
true.
sense they're
I
creative,
see a
but
through line.
yeah, there's some sort. She's not battling too much with her
Yeah.
businesses. But what would you say to someone like, what are the mistakes that you've made when you started your business? Like, what are some things you're like, oh well, I kind of.
So
messed
I'll
up.
tell you. So this goes back to my very first business that I was entrepreneur in. This is when I first was able to call myself an entrepreneur. This goes all the way back to a company I was with called Launch Leads. We were a digital marketing lead gen outsourcing agency. And when I joined them as employee number 5, chief operating officer and an owner, we had a negative $10,000 run rate. Okay. And that is not a business model I recommend. I don't teach people to follow that. It doesn't work. You can't be negative. And, I mean, basically every hour we were open, we were losing money, and it was terrifying. And so after about 90 days of this, I realized I was the worst. I was the answer. I was making it worse. And one day I called my amazing wife and was complaining. I don't know if you've ever complained to a significant other before, but I was doing it. I was
Never.
like,
What do you mean?
yeah.
Why would
I was
I ever
like,
do that?
yeah. I was like, this sucks. This job sucks. This business sucks. I'm losing money. I hate everything about this. And my wife said to me, and this is word for word what she said. She said, "Are you done whining?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Good. Lucky for you, I didn't marry a loser. You've been complaining about this job for weeks, and I'm sick of it. From now on, only call me when you're going to talk about the solutions. Otherwise, you're the problem. From now on, only talk to me about the 4 C's." And then she hung up the phone. Wham!
Your wife sounds awesome.
I love
She
her.
is. She's absolutely
If I tried that with
Sounds
Steve, he'd be like,
amazing.
Yeah.
Like, what did you just say?
Yeah.
No, but like it's something you so need to hear. And like
Yeah.
I do say, like when to my boyfriend, I'm just like, if I'm ever complaining too much, let me know. And it's like, I feel like that's something. It's like you can vent and it's fine, but you also need to talk about the solutions. That
That's
is
right.
so valuable. And oh my gosh, yeah, she sounds great.
Well, and that's what she did. And look, and I did not call her every day because
Yeah.
I didn't have good things to say every day. But when I did, she challenged me, and she taught me the value of what a coach really is supposed to do. A coach, you are not supposed to have this warm, cuddly relationship with your coach where you're like, "Oh, wow, you're making me feel so good." She made me feel like crap all the time. She had a background in business. She'd been an executive for a company out in Utah at the time, so she was very familiar with what I was going with. And she just pushed me and said, "No, that's you being a baby. Knock it off."
Yeah.
And it was after there. I mean, she helped me build that company where we got to 1.5 million just by talking to her. And that's when I learned the value of I need a coach. I need somebody that can push me differently, that looks at it expertly, and then doesn't let me slip. And so I've had a coach ever since.
Do you
Yeah,
have
so
a
is it
business?
a business or a life coach? Yeah, I was just gonna ask, is it business or life?
So it's absolute. I wouldn't say it's a pure life coach. Look, it's not a Dr. Phil,
Yeah.
but they have always had a business background, and they probably flirt more in the high performance coaching world than what they've always been. And they really hammer me to be better. And that's what actually got me when they said you should, you should listen to your wife. You should start your own coaching business because nobody likes you. And so you've already got that part figured out, right? And so if nobody likes you, you're going to be a great coach.
Perfect. That's awesome. Wow.
So cool. So
I have to
what
let me get my dog outside. My dog's
Yeah,
wild.
no, that's okay. I was wondering if it was Millie. I didn't know if it was Millie who was having a hard time. Did you hear that?
time?
My dog works with me all the time.
That's
But then
okay.
they hear somebody downstairs. She's like,
Oh, she's like, I need to go talk to you.
Yeah.
No problem. Yeah, I know that Millie is like, on
Yeah, she's just
on the lap usually. Hi, Millie.
I love it.
So
Big dog
cute.
lover. Big
She's
dog
chills.
lover.
We usually have like about 45 minutes on Zoom. If we do like hit the timer, we could always restart. We're good. Okay. Just wanted to make sure, but I think that we're chilling. Cool. So now I know that you still have the accountability now, but you're also working for another company, 411 Locals. Is that your own, or did you just like get hired by them?
They originally found me because of what I was doing from a coaching perspective. And now I have a full-time engagement with them, and I coach. So my coaching practice is I do 25 hours a week on my coaching practice, and it's going to be we'll probably be 350,000 this year in revenue, right, with coaching practice. And then I work with Accountability Now, where we run I work with 411 Locals, where we do a digital marketing agency. And since I've been involved, we've grown by 36%, and
Wow.
we're going to continue to grow and do some really cool things.
That's amazing.
You're the next Gary V.
Well, he puts in a lot of hours. I put in a lot of hours, but I appreciate a lot of the things that he says. He taught something that I teach people a lot. They love to come to me and say, I'm an entrepreneur, help me. And I'll say, just right out of Gary V's script, I'll say, what have you sold? Like, what have you risked? And they'll say, well, nothing yet. Well, then don't call yourself an entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneur, has their money on the line. There was nothing more scary to me than when I was at that launch leads company I referred to on a Friday night, talking to somebody that owed us $125,000. And I needed them to pay us because we would not make payroll the next week if I didn't get them to wire the money. And I was the only one that knew this. And I remember them saying, well, we'll get it to you on Monday. And I was like, you don't understand. Like, it has to be today, or you've got to wire the money. That's what an entrepreneur does. They're making those tough calls. There was another time, not to bore you with a dumb story, but there was another time we couldn't make payroll. And I mean, we just couldn't. And so I called, we had an HRO, somebody was doing all of our human resource outsourcing. And I called him and said, would you float us? Would you float our payroll? Like a peddler. I was begging. And I said, we'll pay you back with interest. We'll do all this stuff. And he was awesome. And he did. And he covered us. I showed him all my accounts receivable. We're going to make so much money if you'll just cover us. And he did. He was kind enough to do that. And that's what built the business on us being able to do that. It was incredible.
There was Elon Musk was actually in a clubhouse room the other day, and somebody said, they asked him a question. They were like, what kind of advice do you have to inspire me as an entrepreneur? And he said, if you need advice and inspiration to be an entrepreneur, you're not an entrepreneur. I was like, absolutely. Oh, dang. It's spot on though.
Gotta be honest though. That's the thing, is the honesty is like what's going to help the most. And I feel like with the money thing, it's like, I think that's got to be the most stress, especially when you're starting, like you said, we're starting a business or being an entrepreneur. It's just like having to hold yourself accountable for the financial point as well, not just the creative points. And it's like it's everything across the board.
So, you bring up a good point. So many soon to be entrepreneurs or starting out entrepreneurs spend so much of their time worrying about content development and, am I on social media? Do I have my podcast going? And they're doing all this time creating and not acquiring customers. And if you were going to map it out, 80% of your time as an entrepreneur should be spent on how do I make the cash register ring? How do I get cash flow? That's what matters. And then you'll create over time. You will create things and you'll do things creatively, but make it ring, make that ding happen. And I teach this: sales solves all sins. If you'll just sell more, everything else will work.
This might be a weird question, or maybe it's hard to answer, but how would you feel? What would you say to someone who doesn't know where to start to make those relationships?
That's actually a great question. Okay. So I teach it in another little metaphor. Okay. But in the 1840s in the United States, millions of people crossed the plains. You all did this on Oregon Trail when you were younger, but they crossed the plains into San Francisco with the idea that there was gold in the rivers. That's why they call it the San Francisco 49ers, right? Because these people all over the country were like, I have a chance at gold. Most of them failed. But the idea behind that is you have to go to where the gold is. They didn't sit in Oklahoma and say, bring that river to me, bring it, and that's going to happen. That didn't happen at all. They went to where it was. So right now, both of you, myself, other people, we have thousands of people that we know that love and trust us. And that's the beginning of your network. You call them. That's where the gold is. You go to them and you do three things really quickly. First thing is you give them something. How can I help you? How can I help your life, your business? Totally for free. I just want to help. The second thing, you promote them. How can I promote what you do? How can I share it and do crazy things with it? And then after those two, you ask. You don't ask them to buy, you ask them to help. Hey, you know what I do. Who do you know that could use this? And if you'll do that all the time, start with give, start with promote, and then ask, you will that's how you build your network. And I do those meetings every day.
What was that, Monica?
So it's that jab, jab, right hook. I always hear that in business.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's Gary Vee teaches that exact same thing.
Yeah.
So, yep, I totally agree.
Nice.
That's awesome. So what advice, well, I guess she just asked you about advice, but let's say somebody wants to start a coaching business or something like that. What's the first thing? Is it to hit that network and try to start building a client list?
Good. Yeah. When I have people that are starting a coaching business, I have this magic recipe, these 3 steps that you can do. First thing is you've got to know your niche, right? Russell Brunson teaches there's riches in the niches, and he couldn't be more accurate, especially with coaching. You should never call yourself a life coach because that's not real. Nobody knows what that is.
Yeah.
You should be a life coach, but in a very specific area, right? I help with divorcees, or I help with financial struggle, or I help with weight, or like I do business owners between 0 and 10 million. That's it. If you're over 10 million, I don't want to talk to you, okay? Because I want to focus where I'm great. Yeah. So you have to know your niche. The second thing is you have to have a great coaching name. Don't call your coaching business, Monica Ortega Coaching. Okay. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't mean anything. Nobody knows outside of your mom, right, what that even means. Nobody cares. Yep. Call it what you're doing, right? Divorce Coach International. I don't care. Name it what you're doing. And the third thing is have a program, because people don't know what coaching is. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to make me feel good? You're going to just talk to me? So make it a product, right? Turn it into a Happy Meal. Say, okay, you come in like this. I do these 3 things with you. And then you end like this. So now you're buying a product. And now it's a sellable business. And then from there, you start to do like that. You find your power base, you give, you serve, and then you say, hey, I've got my Divorce International coaching business. You know what I do. Who do you know that could use this? And it'll start to spread.
That's really good. That was perfect advice. I feel like you have everything like laid out. Like it's just so easy to follow. And I feel like it's just something that someone can just take and utilize each day. That's amazing. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the best thing I do is I have my own coach. And it's one of the tricks that I play whenever I talk to coaches and they say, I'm really interested in growing my practice. I'll say, well, do you have a coach? And when they say, no, I don't need a coach, I'll say, well, then you're not interested, right? Because if you're in the coaching business, or you believe in the coaching model, you can't drink the Kool-Aid, right? And not take some for yourself, right? You have to have somebody that's holding you accountable to be better. And I'm not talking about practitioner training, how to be a better coach. I'm talking about growing your business. Yeah. You've got to have that.
That's awesome.
You're like our 3rd guest too that's talked about having a coach. So I think that's great advice. You guys are listening. By now you should get a coach.
Yeah. I took the coaching, I tried to I got a coach during quarantine and I really appreciate it. He pushed me to start this podcast. So honestly, just keep going with it for sure. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience or give it? I feel like you've given so much and I love it all. So
so I just recently launched because I've got my book, The 4 C's of Accountability, which you can get on Amazon. It's the greatest accountability book in history. Not necessarily statistically ranked, but just I believe that to be true. But I also recognize a lot of people struggle with, hey, I can't afford a coach. Coaching's too expensive, or I don't know how. So I have on my site at accountabilitynow.net a course. We update the content every week. I have different guests come in and update content. Everything's done in this micro learning under 6 minutes or less. So you can understand accountability, learn how to start a business, learn how to start your coaching business, learn sales. And I do it for $7 a month, super low cost. It's less than Netflix, because the idea was I wanted to give people stuff that we've just talked about in bite-sizable chunks so they can repeat it over and over and over and start to master it. So That's where I send people that want to work with me directly. I can be expensive. I produce results, but I know it's not the easiest thing. So sign up for that. Super easy. And you can have your whole team on it if you want, because it helps them just repeatedly learn every day.
I love that. We're definitely going to link that below. Is there anywhere else that people can find you that we can send them to?
I'm on Instagram, executivecoach.don. And on Twitter at Don Markland. Those are the biggest places to do that. I do want to say I love what you all are doing. We talked about this beforehand, but small business owners, startup owners, people that don't understand, what good advice is, and that you still need to go make some mistakes, right? But you are all providing a voice or an ability for them. The wisest people, it's an old Indian saying, but the wisest people learn from their own mistakes, but the absolute wisest learn from the mistakes of others. And that's what you're doing. You're giving them an opportunity for people to say, hey, I don't need to make that mistake. I can learn from that schmuck, Don, who did this wrong.
I feel like we both made a lot of mistakes in our own business journeys, and we thought, okay, other people have to be making these mistakes too, so let's create a show about it and help each other move forward.
Exactly.
I love that.
And that each mistake is okay to have, because that means, again, you're moving forward. You're stumbling forward. Be accountable.
Look at that name drop. That's good. That's good work.
Thank you so much for being on the show. This was so awesome. We're going to link everything below so that you guys can find Don. If you're watching this video, it'll be up on YouTube. Be sure to head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review, all that good stuff. And we will catch you next time. So I'm one of your hosts, Monica Ortega.
And I'm Kristen Herman. Thanks, Don.
Thank you so much.